Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Montero. I'm a primary care sports medicine physician here at Mayo Clinic. I work in the orthopedics department. Typically with a marathon, you're going to have big crowds. Instead of zipping in and out where you can run into people and knock people over, just go with the flow. And everyone's nervous and excited and ready to go and ready to jump out of the chute. Warming up is also a good idea. Not necessarily stretching, but getting the blood flow going. Typically the nervous energy pre-race is enough to keep you jumping up and down, and that's usually enough to get you going. Keeping an eye on the weather is extremely important. So if it's going to be chilly that morning, you want to dress appropriately and layer up. If it's going to be warmer, again, you need a little less clothing from that aspect, but you're going to want to shed clothes as you warm up. If you are thirsty, then you're already dehydrated. So be careful in terms of trying to catch up. You don't want to overshoot that. You should be cautious too if you feel muscle cramps or dizzy or weak out of proportion than where you think you should be at that time. Those are pretty classic symptoms for dehydration. Headache can also do that. Headache, however, can also be a sign of hyponatremia. And if you drink too much, you feel swollen or look edematous, that can be a sign of the opposite. You've had too much to drink. If you're nausea and vomiting or confused, those are red flags for hyponatremia. And again, certainly it's not a bad idea to stop in one of the medical tents and have someone evaluate you. From a hydration standpoint, again, that's very much weather dependent and dependent upon how you've trained. So it's important that you drink about 3 times an hour. Typically, water is the most important thing for the first hour, but after an hour of exercise, usually you want some sort of sports type of drink that contains carbohydrates and electrolytes. Probably the most common thing we end up seeing is actually blisters, and a little bit of care and attention to what you wear and some pre-race things can go a long ways. You typically want to avoid cotton in terms of your socks and your shirts. And there are various products out there, gels and creams, that can be very helpful to prevent chafing, and not just in your feet, but also in the armpit and other sensitive areas. In terms of weather conditions, if you're coming from elsewhere and training in a different climate, you have to be aware of the difference in temperatures. So if you're in a little colder climate in terms of training, you may sweat a little more if you're not used to the heat, and vice versa. If you're in a hot climate running in the cold, you may drink too much from the way you've been training and may not be sweating quite as much. So listen to your body. In general, the most important thing is to run the way that you've trained, and trust that your training will serve you well. And when you try to deviate in the last minute is when people get into trouble.